Remember when the PlayStation 5 advertised itself as a console that could play games at 8K? Well, I forgot about that until someone pointed that out last year. Or was it the year before? Huh. Anyways, that 8K capable label has been removed now, so players wouldn't be so disappointed. Still, both the PS5 and Xbox Series X deliver great performance for the cost. Well, not now, but you know what I mean. Since then, PC hardware has gotten far stronger, and yet it still managed to run like a potato if you set the graphics settings from medium to high on an Unreal Engine 5 title. There are graphics cards now that can run most PC games at 4K resolution while delivering high frame rates, and can get even higher with methods like upscaling. The RX 9070 XT is one of those cards. Going for an MSRP of $600 is capable of running the latest titles at decent resolutions. However, I was curious to know if it can at least run games at 8K. After various amounts of testing involved, I managed to find 15 titles that the GPU is able to provide a playable experience. There are 5 rules put in place for this challenge, and these are the following. Number 1. I will only test games that are released around or after the year 2020. Rule 2. No upscaling is allowed, but native anti-aliasing options are, such as TSR, TAA, FSR 3 or 4, native AA. Overall, this means I can't use FSR 4 quality and lower. Rule 3. No frame generation is allowed. Rule 4. The game has to meet a minimum of 30 frames per second to be considered playable. Because, let's be real, we still have games running at 30 FPS on consoles. Rule 5, no overclocking. The graphics card is run at stock clocks. Going in order from 2020 to 2026, first up is Cyberpunk 2077. Running it at 8K native with no resolution scaling, the rest of the graphics settings are set to the lowest except for texture quality and crowd density, which is also set on high with both contact shadows and lighting geometry enabled. In-game shows really impressive results as it averages around 47 FPS with 1% lows at 32. There are some details lost and the lighting is quite bright, but at least the game is playable. Next up, we have Monster Hunter Rise. The game is configured up to 8K with anti-aliasing turned off, since the resolution cleans up the jaggeds itself. The rest of the settings are set to high. Because it was originally made for the Switch, this game isn't too heavy to begin with, as it hits up to 76 FPS on average and 68 on 1% lows. This is really solid if you want a smooth playable experience on a 3D title. This game crashed my system when I first set it to 8K resolution with high textures. That should have stayed low, so that's my mistake there. Anyways, the graphics settings are set to low with anti-aliasing turned off. Jumping in-game presents very crisp, sharp visuals, offering a playable performance figure of 70 FPS on average with a 1% low of just 59. So close. This Unreal Engine 5 title named The Finals isn't as intensive as you think. The developers did good optimization work to make it playable on many DX12 systems. The settings are set to all low with RTX global illumination at static. No AA solution is needed for 8K here. In this match, the GPU was able to output 51 FPS on average with a 1% low of 40 FPS. It's playable, yes, but for a title like this, you'd need more than 60 at least.
Down there!
And there it is. The opening Grand Vault is armed and running. I've disappeared.
Furthermore, on the topic of optimization, RE4 Remake runs well on a variety of PC configurations, giving players a solid experience. Settings here are set to low at 8K. There is no AA solution enabled, however textures are set to high and cinematics resolution to 4K. That one is just the cutscenes though. Running through the village in-game gives a performance average of just 59 FPS and a 1% low of 48. It's still smooth, and maybe with an overclock it can hit 60.
There it is.
Developed on Unreal Engine 4, Dead Island 2 runs at 8K all low settings with FXAA anti-aliasing. Unfortunately, you cannot turn that off, so I picked the less intensive option. The frame time graph is not so smooth, but the card managed to hit 43 FPS on average and an underwhelming 1% low of just 14 FPS. Spider-Man 2 is an intensive game despite being developed in-house by Insomniac. Setting it to 8K all low with no AA, the game hits an average of 38 FPS and a 1% low of 17.
Added a little extra kick.
Deadlock, developed by Valve, is still a work in progress, so performance figures may change when it launches someday. Anyways, setting the resolution to 8K on full screen mode and dropping quality to the lowest except keeping the textures to high, the game reached a playable 84 FPS on average with a great 1% low of 66. Frame time graph also remained smooth for the most part. Great stuff here.
This is how you get it done.
Marvel Rivals is the recent popular hero shooter on this list and was developed on UE5. This title can be super intensive on lower end GPUs, and when run on very high native resolutions, it can chug. Running this at 8K with no AA and all quality settings set to the lowest, it reached just shy of 34 FPS on average and 1% lows of 26 FPS. Quite possibly the worst performance shown so far for a competitive title, as it feels sluggish to play.
Mission area. For my friend.
Look out below!
Double kill!
Feeling sharp. There's another one down. Bombs away!
Made in-house, named the Frostbite engine, Battlefield 6 can be a lot more demanding on the CPU rather than the GPU when run at 1080p or 1440p. Set at 8K with everything on low, including screen space AO off, the game presented performance figures of 38 FPS on average and 31 FPS on the 1% low. For an FPS game, that is way too slow.
Heads up, your team's got a vehicle.
Combat vehicle trailer marked.
We're gonna need AT! Enemy tag! Enemy tank is good! Redirect fire! That's what happened! One of your Vicks is out of commission.
Hollow Knight Silksong, one of the most anticipated titles that released last year, can run on most computers since it's not demanding when rendering a 2D image. At 8K with quality settings set to max and film grain off, the game delivers a silky smooth 220 FPS on average and a 1% low of 102. This is more than playable if you have an 8K display. Just like Silksong, Hades 2 isn't demanding due to its isometric design. Set at 8K with high graphics quality, it remains playable with an average FPS of 157 and 1% lows of 84.
Lost souls. I'll make the Titan pay.
Forza Horizon 6 is the latest entry in their series of festival racers. Well known for their optimization, the games present more than acceptable image quality at decent frame rates on older systems. At 8K resolution with the graphics preset set to very low and AA off, the game lands at 73 FPS on average and 59% on 1% lows. Definitely playable for a racing game. For the last game tested, LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight is another UE5 title that will take on 8K. But this game surprised me despite running on that engine. Set at 8K native on the lowest graphics quality, produced an average of 58 FPS and a 1% low of 38 FPS. This is by far the best performing UE5 game tested at 8K resolution.
Let's roll.
To conclude, the RX 9070 XT is an absolute powerhouse of a card that can take on resolutions up to 8K as long as the game runs on lower quality. If you're able to find one within a range of $600 to $700, you'd have a great guaranteed gaming experience whether it is running at 1080, 1440p, or 4K. If you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to like and share this to your friends or anyone else. And feel free to leave a subscription if you haven't already. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.